The grease from the fryer clung to my skin like a second layer, thick and suffocating. I could feel it in my hair, smell it on my uniform, that acrid combination of overused oil and desperation that no amount of cheap shampoo could wash away. The diner's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow that made the cracked linoleum floor look even more pathetic than it was. My feet ached. They always ached by this point in my shift. But tonight felt worse. Maybe it was because I'd been pulling doubles for 3 weeks straight, or maybe it was because I knew my landlord was waiting for rent I didn't have. Again. "Order up, Lena." Danny's voice cut through the kitchen chaos, and I grabbed the plates. Meatloaf special for table 6, burger and fries for the couple by the window, and pushed through the swinging door into the dining area. The evening rush had died down to a trickle. Just a few regulars nursing cold coffee and the kind of loneliness that only a 24-hour diner could accommodate. Old Mr. Peterson sat in his usual corner booth, reading yesterday's newspaper. The Collins twins were sharing a milkshake, their laughter too loud, too forced. And then there was table 12. I hadn't noticed them come in. 3 men in suits that probably cost more than my entire year's salary sat in the booth near the back exit. But it wasn't them that made my pulse quicken. It was the 4th man, the one who sat with his back to the wall, positioned so he could see every entrance, every exit, every person in the room. He wore all black, not the cheap faded black of my work pants, but the kind of black that absorbed light, that whispered wealth and danger in the same breath. His dark hair was styled with precision, and even from across the room, I could see the sharp line of his jaw, the way his fingers drummed against the table with calculated patience. The scent reached me before I even approached their table. Expensive cologne, leather, and something else. Something that smelled like power. "What can I get you, gentlemen?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. The 3 men barely glanced at me. But he, the one in the center, lifted his eyes slowly. They were the color of midnight, cold and assessing, scanning me the way a predator evaluated prey. Not with lust, not with interest, but with the kind of attention that made you feel simultaneously invisible and completely exposed. Coffee, black. His voice was low, controlled, with an accent I couldn't quite place. Eastern European, maybe, Russian. "And for you?" I turned to the others, but one of them, a blonde man with a scar across his cheek, just shook his head. "We're not hungry." I scribbled the order on my pad, feeling the weight of those dark eyes still on me. My hand trembled slightly, and I hated myself for it. I'd waited on plenty of intimidating customers before. Drunk bikers, handsy businessmen, cops who thought their badge meant free meals. But this was different. This man didn't need to do anything to command the room. He simply existed in it, and everything else bent around him like gravity. I retreated to the kitchen, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Table 12 is weird," I muttered to Danny as I poured the coffee. "Weird how?" He didn't look up from the grill. "Just weird." When I returned with the coffee, the blonde man was on his phone, speaking in rapid Russian. The other 2 sat rigid, alert, their eyes constantly scanning the diner, but the man in black, their boss, clearly, had his attention fixed on the window. I set the cup down, and his hand moved with startling speed, catching my wrist, not hard, not painful, but firm enough to freeze me in place. "Your name?" he asked, his thumb pressing against my pulse point. Could he feel how fast my heart was racing? "Lena." The word barely made it past my lips. "Lena." He repeated it like he was testing how it felt in his mouth, and something in his expression shifted. Something I couldn't read. Recognition? No, that was impossible. I'd never seen this man before in my life. "Do I know you?" I asked, immediately regretting the question. "You didn't question men like this. You smiled, you served, you collected your tip and forgot their faces." His grip loosened, but he didn't release me. "No, but you will." A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. "Sir, I need to..." I started to pull away, but then I heard it. A sound that didn't belong, a mechanical tick-tick-tick coming from somewhere close, too close. My eyes darted to the window, to the black SUV parked directly in front of the diner. Something about it was wrong. The windows were tinted too dark, and there was a strange smell, acrid, chemical, seeping through the door. The ticking grew louder, and suddenly I wasn't thinking, wasn't calculating. My body moved on instinct, raw and primal, fueled by 6 years of living in a neighborhood where you learn to recognize danger by the way the air changed. "Get down!" I screamed, but my voice was drowned out by the sudden chaos. Instead, I grabbed his arm, this stranger, this dangerous man who looked at me like I was a ghost, and I pulled. He was solid muscle beneath that expensive suit, but surprise was on my side. He rose, and I yanked him toward the kitchen, my other hand already shoving at the 2 men nearest to us. "Move! Everyone move!" The blond man started to protest, reaching for something under his jacket. A gun, I realized with numb horror. But their boss barked something in Russian, sharp and commanding. The swinging door crashed open as I hauled him through, his men following, Danny looking up in confusion, Mr. Peterson starting to stand, the Collins twins frozen with their milkshake between them. And then the world exploded. The blast wave hit like a physical wall, throwing me forward into the kitchen. I felt his arms wrap around me, spinning us so his body took the impact as we crashed into the industrial refrigerator. The sound was deafening, a roar that seemed to tear through my eardrums and straight into my skull. Glass shattered, metal screamed. Someone was screaming. Maybe me, maybe everyone. The lights went out. In the darkness, crushed between cold steel and warm flesh, I could hear his heartbeat. Steady. Too steady for someone who'd just nearly died. His breath was hot against my neck, and his arms hadn't loosened. If anything, they'd tightened, holding me against his chest like I was something precious, something worth protecting. "Don't move," he whispered, his lips brushing my ear. There might be a second device, a second device. The words penetrated the shock slowly, like cold water seeping through fabric. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a gas leak or faulty wiring. Someone had tried to kill him, and I'd just saved his life. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing everything in red. Through the haze of smoke and settling dust, I could see the dining area, or what was left of it. The front of the diner was gone, completely obliterated. Where table 12 had been, there was now just twisted metal and shattered glass. Where the Collins twins had been laughing, there was nothing but debris. "Oh God," I breathed. "Oh God, the people." "Nikolai, report." His voice cut through my panic, cold and commanding. The blond man appeared through the smoke, blood streaming from a cut on his forehead, but alive, alert. "Perimeter secure, boss. No secondary device detected. 4 casualties in the dining area. The old man and 2 civilians made it out. First responders 3 minutes out. 4 casualties. 4 people dead, because someone wanted this man, this stranger whose name I didn't even know, eliminated. "Get the car. We're leaving." He finally released me, and I stumbled back, my legs shaking so badly I had to grip the counter to stay upright. "You can't leave," I heard myself say. "The police. They'll want statements. There are people hurt. People dead." He finished for me, his eyes finding mine in the red-tinged darkness. "Yes. Because of me. Which is why you're coming with us." "What?" "No, I can't." "You pulled me to safety." He stepped closer, and I could see his face clearly now. Blood trickled from a cut above his eyebrow, and there was plaster dust in his dark hair, but his expression was calm, eerily calm. "Which means whoever set that bomb saw you do it. Which means you're a liability, a witness, a target." The words hit me harder than the blast wave had. "But I didn't see anything. I don't know anything. I'm just a waitress. I'm nobody." "You were nobody." His hand rose, and I flinched, but he only brushed dust from my cheek with surprising gentleness. "Now you're the woman who saved Viktor Volkov's life, and in my world, Lena, that makes you everything." Viktor Volkov. The name echoed in my head, pulling up fragments of news reports I'd half-watched, whispered conversations I'd overheard. The Russian businessman with ties to organized crime. The man even the police wouldn't touch. The ghost who controlled half the city's underground from the shadows. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. "Boss, we need to move. Now." Nikolai appeared at the destroyed doorway, urgency finally cracking his professional composure. Victor's hand moved to the small of my back, and I felt the pressure. Not forceful, but absolute. This wasn't a request. "Walk with me," he said softly, "or I'll carry you. Your choice." Through the smoke, I could see Danny sprawled near the grill, unconscious but breathing. I could see the destroyed dining room, the flames starting to lick at what remained of the front wall. I could see my entire life, my pathetic, exhausting, barely surviving life, going up in smoke. And I could see the way Viktor Volkov looked at me, with those midnight eyes that promised both salvation and damnation. I didn't know which terrified me more. "I need my purse," I whispered, hating how small my voice sounded. "It's in my locker." Something that might have been approval flickered across his face. 30 seconds. I ran. The SUV was armored. I could tell by the way the door closed. Thick, heavy, with a sound like a bank vault sealing shut. The interior smelled like leather and gun oil, and the windows were so darkly tinted that the flashing red and blue lights outside became nothing more than distant, muted strobes. Victor sat beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. Nikolai drove, his eyes constantly flicking to the rearview mirror, while the other two men, whose names I still didn't know, occupied the front passenger seat and the row behind us, their hands resting on visible weapons. My purse sat in my lap like a lifeline to normalcy. Inside was my phone, my ID, $17 in tips, and a photograph of my mother before the cancer took her. Not much to show for 26 years of existence. "Where are we going?" My voice sounded foreign in the weighted silence. "Somewhere safe." Victor's fingers drummed against his thigh. The same calculated rhythm I'd noticed in the diner. "Somewhere they won't look for you, they." I turned to face him and immediately regretted it. Up close, in the confined space, he was overwhelming. His presence seemed to consume all the oxygen, leaving me dizzy. "Who's they?" "The people who want me dead." He said it so casually, like he was discussing the weather, which, unfortunately, is a rather extensive list. "Then why don't you just tell the police? Let them—" His laugh was sharp, humorless. "The police?" He tilted his head, studying me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "You really are innocent, aren't you? No games, no angles. Just a girl who pulled a stranger from danger without thinking of the consequences." "I'm not a girl. I'm 26 years old. A woman then." His hand moved, and before I could flinch away, his fingers caught a strand of my hair, rubbing it between his thumb and forefinger, testing the texture. "When was the last time you ate a real meal, Lena? Not diner food. Real food." The question caught me off guard. What does that have to do with anything? Answer me." There was steel beneath the softness of his voice. This was a man accustomed to being obeyed without question. "I don't know. A few weeks, maybe." Shame burned in my chest. "I've been picking up extra shifts. The tips are good on weekends, and my landlord is no longer your concern." He released my hair, but his eyes remained fixed on me. "Nothing from your old life is your concern anymore. Do you understand what I'm telling you?" "No." The word came out sharper than I intended. "No, I don't understand any of this. 20 minutes ago, I was serving coffee. Now I'm in an armored car with a man who has people trying to blow him up, and you're telling me my life is over?" "Not over." His hand moved to my chin, forcing me to meet his gaze. "Changed. There's a difference." The SUV took a sharp turn, and I grabbed the door handle to steady myself. Through the tinted windows, I could see we were heading out of the city, toward the industrial district where abandoned warehouses stood like tombstones against the night sky. "Boss, we're being followed," Nikolai said quietly. "Black sedan. 2 cars back. Same one that was parked outside the diner before the blast." The temperature in the car seemed to drop 10 degrees. Victor's expression didn't change, but I felt the shift in him. A coiling tension, like a snake preparing to strike. "Lose them." What followed happened so fast my brain could barely process it. Nikolai accelerated, the SUV's engine roaring to life with a power that pressed me back against my seat. We swerved between lanes, cutting off a taxi that blared its horn in protest. Behind us, the black sedan matched our movements, gaining ground. "Hold on." Victor's arm wrapped around my shoulders, pulling me against his chest, just as Nikolai yanked the wheel hard to the right. The SUV tilted, actually tilted, taking a corner at a speed that should have flipped us. I heard the screech of tires, smelled burning rubber, felt my stomach lurch into my throat. Victor's other hand braced against the door, creating a cage around me with his body. "Mikhail, discourage them," Victor said calmly, as if we weren't currently defying the laws of physics. The man in the back seat lowered his window. The sound of gunfire split the air, sharp, precise cracks that made me scream into Victor's chest. I felt his hand move to the back of my head, holding me there, his fingers tangling in my hair. "Don't look," he murmured against my temple. "Just breathe." But I could hear it. The impact of bullets on metal, the shattering of glass, and then a massive crash as the sedan collided with something, a parked car, a light pole. I couldn't tell. "They're down," Mikhail reported, pulling himself back inside and closing the window like he'd just finished checking his email. Victor's grip loosened slightly, but he didn't let me go. "Injured or dead?" "Dead. Driver took 3 rounds. Vehicles totaled." I thought I might vomit. I'd never seen violence like this. Real violence. Not movie violence. Not news report violence. The kind where you could smell the cordite and feel the reality of ended lives pressing against your consciousness. 3 more blocks to the safe house, Nikolai said. Safe house. The words should have been comforting, but all I could think about was the blood that was surely spreading across some distant intersection, the families who would get terrible news before morning, the casual way these men dealt death like it was just another task on their list. "I want to go home," I whispered into Victor's shirt, which smelled like smoke and expensive fabric softener. "You don't have a home anymore." His voice was gentle, but absolute. "Your apartment is compromised. They'll have people there within the hour, if they don't already. Your workplace is destroyed. Your co-workers." He paused, and I felt him sigh. "I'm sorry about your co-workers, Danny." Sweet, simple Danny, who had a daughter in community college and a gambling problem he thought nobody knew about. Mr. Peterson, who left a $5 tip every night even though he only ordered coffee. The Collins twins, barely out of high school, who giggled and flirted and were supposed to have their whole lives ahead of them. Gone. Because I'd pulled a stranger into a kitchen. "This is my fault," I said, the realization crushing down on me like concrete blocks. "If I hadn't pulled you, if I'd just let you, if you'd let me die, you'd still be dead." Victor's fingers tightened in my hair, tilting my head back so I had to look at him. "They saw you notice something was wrong. They saw you move. Whether you saved me or not, you became a problem the moment you reacted. At least this way, you have protection." Protection. I laughed, and it sounded hysterical even to my own ears. "You just killed 3 people. 3 people who were going to kill us both." He leaned closer, his breath warm against my face. "Welcome to my world, Lena. It's brutal and bloody and unfair. But you're in it now, whether you like it or not. So you have 2 choices. You can fight me every step of the way and make both our lives more difficult, or you can accept reality and let me keep you alive." The SUV slowed, turning into what looked like an abandoned warehouse district. But as we passed through a chain-link gate that closed automatically behind us, I saw that the building ahead was anything but abandoned. Security cameras perched at every corner, and men in dark clothing stood at strategic positions, weapons clearly visible. We pulled into an underground garage, and the door rolled shut behind us with mechanical precision. "Out!" Victor released me and stepped from the vehicle with fluid grace. When I didn't immediately follow, he reached back in, his hand extended. "Come, Lena. Let me show you your new cage." I stared at his hand, strong, scarred across the knuckles, with a ring on his right index finger that bore some kind of crest I didn't recognize. This was insane. All of it. I should refuse. Should demand they let me go. Should scream and fight and what? They'd just killed 3 people without hesitation. If I was a liability, how long would I survive if I refused his protection? I took his hand. His fingers closed around mine, warm and possessive, and he pulled me from the SUV with careful control. My legs shook as my feet hit the concrete floor, and for a moment I thought I might collapse. But his arm moved around my waist, steadying me, keeping me upright. "I've got you," he said softly. "I won't let you fall." We entered through a steel door that required both a keycard and fingerprint recognition. The hallway beyond was clean, modern, lit with soft LED lights that felt almost comforting after the chaos. Nikolai walked ahead of us, speaking quietly into a phone, while Mikhail and the other guard followed behind. "This is my secondary location," Victor explained as we walked. "Officially, it's a storage facility for imported textiles. Unofficially." He guided me through another door, and I gasped. The space opened into a luxurious loft that looked like something from an architecture magazine. Exposed brick walls, floor-to-ceiling windows covered with blackout shades, modern furniture in shades of gray and black, and a kitchen that was bigger than my entire apartment. Unofficially, it's where I come when I need to disappear. I pulled away from him, wrapping my arms around myself as I moved toward the center of the room. Everything was too clean, too perfect, too far removed from the reality of what had just happened. "There's a bedroom through there," he gestured to a hallway, "bathroom, closet with clothes that should fit you. You'll find everything you need. How do you know what size I wear?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "I'm very good at measurements." The words should have sounded threatening, but instead they sent an unexpected warmth through my chest. I blamed it on shock. "Why are you doing this?" I turned to face him fully. "You don't know me. I'm nobody. Why not just, I don't know, put me up in a hotel somewhere and forget about me?" He moved closer, each step deliberate, predatory. "Because the moment you touched me, you became mine to protect." He stopped inches away, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. "Because you saw something in me worth saving, even though any rational person would have let me burn. And because..." His hand rose, and I felt his fingers trace the line of my jaw with devastating gentleness. "Because you remind me of someone I lost. Someone who deserved better than the death she received." My breath caught. "I'm not her. No." His thumb brushed across my lower lip, and I felt the touch all the way down to my toes. "You're not. But you're here, and you're alive, and I'm going to make damn sure you stay that way." He stepped back abruptly, breaking the spell. "Get cleaned up. Eat something. Rest. Tomorrow we'll discuss what happens next. And if I want to leave?" His expression hardened. "Then you die. Probably within 12 hours. Is that what you want?" "No." The admission felt like defeat. "Good. Then we understand each other." He moved toward the door, pausing with his hand on the frame. "Don't try to contact anyone from your old life. Don't go near the windows. Don't open the door for anyone except me or Nikolai. Are we clear?" "Crystal." He studied me for a long moment, something unreadable flickering in those dark eyes. Then he nodded and left, the door closing with a soft click that sounded impossibly loud in the sudden silence. I stood there, alone in a stranger's safe house, covered in dust and blood that wasn't mine, and finally let myself cry. I didn't sleep. How could I? When every time I closed my eyes, I saw the explosion replaying in vivid detail, the flash of light, the wave of heat, the way bodies had been thrown like rag dolls. By the time dawn light filtered through the edges of the blackout shades, I'd showered 3 times trying to scrub away the smell of smoke, eaten nothing despite the fully stocked refrigerator, and worn a path in the hardwood floor with my pacing. The clothes Victor had mentioned fit perfectly. Designer jeans that hugged my hips, a soft cashmere sweater in deep burgundy, undergarments still in their packaging from brands I'd only seen in magazine advertisements. Everything in my size, down to the shoes. It was unsettling. How prepared he'd been, like he'd known I was coming before I did. A knock at the door made me jump. "Lena." Victor's voice, muffled but recognizable. "May I come in?" I could have said no, should have said no. But the alternative was continuing to pace alone with my thoughts, and that was its own kind of torture. "It's your apartment." The door opened, and he entered carrying a tray. Coffee. I could smell it, rich and dark, and something that made my traitorous stomach growl despite my anxiety. He'd changed clothes, now wearing dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle and marked with scars that told stories I probably didn't want to know. "You didn't eat last night." He set the tray on the coffee table, gesturing for me to sit on the leather sofa. "This morning you will." I'm not hungry. Lena. He sat beside me, close, but not touching, and the way he said my name made it sound like a caress and a command simultaneously. I don't enjoy repeating myself. Eat. Maybe it was exhaustion, or maybe it was the fact that part of me recognized the futility of arguing with a man who'd literally kidnapped me for my own protection. But I reached for the plate. Eggs prepared perfectly, toast with real butter, fresh fruit that looked like it had been flown in from somewhere exotic. The first bite tasted like heaven. The second made me realize I was actually starving. Victor watched me eat with that same intense focus he seemed to apply to everything. Not judgmental, not impatient, just observant, like he was cataloging every movement, every expression. Better? He asked when I'd cleared half the plate. Yes. I set down my fork, suddenly self-conscious. Thank you. You don't need to thank me for basic care. He poured coffee into 2 cups, handing me one. What you need to do is listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. My fingers wrapped around the warm ceramic, seeking comfort in the familiar ritual. I'm listening. The bomb was meant for me. Specifically, it was meant to look like a gas leak, an accident. Clean, no witnesses, no complications. He took a sip of his coffee, his eyes never leaving mine. The people responsible are called the Kozlov Bratva. They've been trying to move into my territory for the past 6 months, and I've been resistant to their expansion. Bratva? The word felt foreign on my tongue. Russian organized crime, a brotherhood of sorts, though that word implies more loyalty than actually exists. His jaw tightened. Their leader, Alexei Kozlov, has a particular hatred for me. Personal, not just business. Why? Something dark flickered across his face. Because 5 years ago, I killed his brother. The casual way he admitted to murder should have terrified me. Instead, I found myself asking, why? Because his brother put a bullet in the head of the woman I loved while she was pregnant with my child. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with old grief and barely contained rage. I set down my coffee cup before I could drop it. I'm sorry, I whispered, because what else could I say? Don't be. Sorry doesn't bring them back. He stood, moving to the window and pulling the shade aside just enough to look out. But it does explain why Alexei won't stop until one of us is dead. And it explains why you're in danger. Because I saved you. Because you saved me. And because Alexei's men saw you do it. They took photos. Nikolai intercepted them being transmitted before we left the area. You're now identified as someone important to me, which makes you a target. He let the shade fall back into place, turning to face me. They'll try to use you as leverage, or they'll try to kill you to hurt me. Either way, you're caught in a war you didn't ask for. I stood, anger finally cutting through the fear and exhaustion. Then let me go. Tell them I mean nothing to you. Tell them. It's too late for that. He crossed the distance between us in 3 strides, his hands gripping my shoulders. The moment I brought you here, I claimed you. In their eyes, in my organization's eyes, in the eyes of everyone who operates in this world, you're mine now. Do you understand? Mine to protect, mine to keep safe, mine to... He stopped, his grip loosening slightly. Mine. The possessiveness in his voice should have infuriated me. Instead, it sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with fear. I don't belong to anyone, I said. But the words lacked conviction. No? His hand moved to cup my face, thumb tracing my cheekbone. Then why haven't you tried to run? Why haven't you fought harder to leave? Why do you lean into my touch even as you tell yourself you shouldn't? Because he was right. God help me, he was right. I was leaning into his palm, seeking the warmth and strange security I found there. Stockholm Syndrome, I managed weakly. His laugh was low, dark. After one night? No, Milaya. This is something else entirely. What did you call me? Darling. It's what I called... He stopped, his expression shuddering. It doesn't matter. But it did matter. It mattered because I wasn't just some random woman he was protecting out of obligation. I was a replacement, a ghost of someone he'd lost. The realization should have hurt, but instead, It made a strange kind of sense. I look like her, don't I? The woman you loved. His silence was answer enough. That's why you're doing this. Not because you owe me, not because it's some kind of code, because when you look at me, you see her. No. The word came out harsh, sharp. His other hand came up, framing my face, forcing me to see the intensity in his gaze. When I look at you, I see you. Yes, there's a resemblance. The dark hair, the green eyes, the delicate build. But Irina was hard where you're soft, calculating where you're instinctive. She chose this life. You had it thrust upon you. His thumbs brushed away tears I hadn't realized were falling. You remind me of what she could have been, if she'd been born into a different world. And that matters to me in ways I don't fully understand yet. This is insane. But I didn't pull away. Yes. He leaned closer, and I could feel his breath against my lips. Welcome to insanity. The moment stretched between us, taut as a wire, and I knew with absolute certainty, that if I didn't move, he would kiss me. And if he kissed me, something fundamental would shift, and I'd never be able to go back to pretending I was just a hostage, just a woman in the wrong place at the wrong time. A sharp knock on the door shattered the tension. Boss. Nikolai's voice, urgent. We have a problem. Victor's eyes closed briefly, and when they opened, the vulnerable man I'd glimpsed was gone, replaced by the cold, controlled criminal I'd first met. He released me, stepping back with visible reluctance. Come in. Nikolai entered, and I noticed for the first time how young he was, maybe 30, with pale blue eyes that had seen too much. He glanced at me briefly before focusing on Victor. Alexei sent a message. He has the surveillance footage from the diner. He's threatening to release it to the police unless you meet with him. What's on the footage? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Nikolai's expression was grim. Everything. Including you pulling the boss to safety seconds before the blast. If the police see it, they'll want you for questioning. If they want you for questioning, Alexei's men can grab you in transit. It's a trap. Then we don't let the police have her. Victor's voice was ice. Where does he want to meet? The old Petrov warehouse, 2 hours. You alone. Absolutely not. The words burst out of me before I could stop them. That's suicide. He'll kill you the moment you arrive. Victor turned to me, and something like warmth flickered in his eyes. Concerned for me, Lena? I'm concerned about what happens to me if you're dead. It was a lie, and we both knew it. Nikolai, prepare the team. Full tactical. I want snipers on every building within 1,000 yards, cars at every exit, and enough firepower to start a small war. He moved toward his bedroom, then paused. And get Dmitri on the phone. Tell him I'm calling in his debt. Dmitri? Nikolai's eyebrows rose. Boss. He's been retired for 3 years. He also owes me his life. Time to collect. As Nikolai left, I followed Victor into his bedroom. A space dominated by a massive bed and more weapons than I'd ever seen outside a movie. He was pulling on a shoulder holster, checking the magazine of a gun with practiced efficiency. What are you doing? I demanded. Preparing for war. He slid a knife into his boot, another into a sheath at his back. Alexei wants a meeting, he'll get one, but on my terms. This is because of me, because I saved you. This was inevitable. He crossed to me, still armed, still dangerous, but somehow managing to be gentle as he tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. Alexei and I were always going to have this confrontation. You just accelerated the timeline. Let me come with you. Absolutely not. If I'm the bait, shouldn't I be there? No. The word was final. Absolute. You'll stay here with guards. If I'm not back in 4 hours, Nikolai will take you to a secondary location. There's a bag in the closet with money, passports, and instructions. You'll disappear. Victor, promise me. His hands gripped my arms, and for the first time since I'd met him, I saw something like fear in his eyes. Promise me if this goes wrong, you'll run. You'll take the money and you'll disappear and you'll live the life you were supposed to have before I destroyed it. I promise, I whispered, lying through my teeth. He must have known it was a lie because he kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It was claiming, possessive, desperate. a kiss that tasted like goodbye and forever tangled together. His fingers dug into my hips, pulling me flush against him, and I felt every weapon he carried pressing between us like a reminder of the violence that awaited him. When he pulled back, we were both breathing hard. "When this is over," he said, voice rough, "we're going to have a very long conversation about what happens next." "When this is over," I corrected, "you're going to tell me everything. Who you are, what you do, and why someone I met 12 hours ago already feels like the most important person in my world." A real smile, small but genuine, crossed his face. "Deal." He left, and I stood in his bedroom, surrounded by weapons and expensive sheets, knowing with absolute certainty that I wasn't going to stay here like some damsel waiting to be rescued. I was going to save him again, even if it killed us both. The guard outside my door was named Sergei. I learned this by listening through the keyhole as he spoke on his phone, complaining about babysitting duty when he should be with the boss at the warehouse. He was young, bored, and, most importantly, alone, after Nikolai had pulled the other guards for Victor's operation. I had exactly 90 minutes before Victor reached the meeting point. The plan forming in my mind was insane, suicidal even. But the alternative was sitting here, helpless, while the man who'd somehow become my entire world walked into an ambush. Yes, he had a team. Yes, he had weapons and training and years of experience, but Alexei had surprise, desperation, and nothing to lose. And I had something neither of them expected. The surveillance footage showing exactly what happened. I rifled through Victor's closet until I found what I needed: a dark jacket, boots that were too big but workable, and a baseball cap to hide my hair. In his nightstand drawer, beneath passports and cash, I found a small handgun. I'd never held a gun before. My hands shook as I checked it the way I'd seen in movies, finding it loaded. Safety on. "Please don't let me have to use this," I prayed to whatever God watched over foolish women. The escape itself was almost embarrassingly easy. I called room service. Yes, the safe house had room service because apparently crime did pay extremely well. And when Sergei opened the door to receive the tray, I hit him with a heavy crystal vase from Victor's dresser. He went down hard, and guilt twisted my stomach as I stepped over his unconscious form. I took his phone and keys, leaving him with a whispered apology he couldn't hear. The underground garage held 6 vehicles, but I grabbed the keys to the least conspicuous, a dark sedan that could blend into traffic. My hands trembled as I started the engine, but years of delivering food in my beat-up Honda came back to me. Driving was driving, even if the car cost more than my lifetime earnings. Getting past the gate required Sergei's phone and a security code I'd watched him enter earlier. The fact that I remembered numbers under pressure surprised me. Maybe I was more adaptable than I'd thought. Or maybe desperation made you capable of anything. The warehouse district was on the east side, near the docks where shipping containers stacked like rusted building blocks. I parked 3 blocks away and approached on foot, the 2 big boots rubbing blisters on my heels, the gun heavy in my jacket pocket. Afternoon sun beat down, turning the abandoned industrial landscape into something post-apocalyptic. No people, no traffic, just warehouses and the distant sound of water lapping against concrete. I spotted Victor's men before they spotted me. Shapes on rooftops, glints of rifle scopes catching sunlight. They were good, but I knew what to look for now. Funny how 12 hours in Victor's world had taught me to see violence lurking in shadows. The Petrov warehouse loomed ahead, its windows shattered, walls covered in graffiti. 2 black SUVs were parked outside, Victor's team. But on the far side, partially hidden behind a cargo container, I saw 3 more vehicles. Alexei's backup. This was wrong. Victor had walked into exactly the trap I'd feared. I circled around, using abandoned equipment for cover, until I found a side entrance half hidden by overgrown weeds. The door was unlocked, careless, or maybe intentional, a way for Alexei's men to flank Victor's position. Inside, the warehouse was dim, lit only by sunlight streaming through broken windows and holes in the roof. Voices echoed from somewhere ahead. Russian, sharp with tension. I crept forward, every nerve screaming that this was insane, that I should run, call the police, do literally anything except walk deeper into a confrontation between armed criminals. But Victor was here, and somehow, impossibly, that mattered more than my survival instinct. I reached a catwalk overlooking the main floor and froze. Below, Victor stood in a shaft of dusty sunlight, Nikolai beside him. Both men relaxed in a way that somehow seemed more dangerous than if they'd had weapons drawn. Across from them, separated by maybe 30 feet, stood a man I instinctively knew was Alexei Kozlov. He was older than Victor, maybe 50, with silver threading through dark hair and the kind of face that had once been handsome before cruelty carved permanent lines into it. 4 men flanked him, all armed, all watching Victor with the focused attention of predators. "You came alone," Alexei's voice carried clearly, Russian accent thick. "I'm surprised. I expected your characteristic paranoia. I came with enough firepower to level this building." Victor's tone was casual, almost bored. "Your men on the roof? They're dead. The 3 vehicles you left as backup? Disabled. You're surrounded, Alexei. This meeting has exactly one outcome." "Does it?" Alexei smiled, and something about that smile made ice form in my veins. "You're right about my backup, but wrong about your advantage." He pulled out a phone, pressing a button. The explosion came from outside, distant, but unmistakable. Victor's expression didn't change, but I saw his hand move incrementally toward his weapon. "That was one of your precious SUVs," Alexei said. "The one with your favorite driver. What was his name? Dmitri? The retired soldier you called in as a favor?" "You son of a—" Nikolai started forward, but Victor's hand shot out, stopping him. "Dmitri got out before the blast," Victor said calmly. Too calmly. "I know your methods, old man. I planned for them." "Did you plan for this?" Alexei gestured, and from the shadows emerged 2 more men, dragging a woman between them. My heart stopped. She was young, maybe 19, with dark hair and terrified eyes. Blood trickled from a cut on her temple, and her hands were zip-tied in front of her. "Meet Katerina," Alexei said. "My daughter's daughter, my only grandchild. She doesn't know about the family business. She thinks her grandfather imports antiques." His gun appeared, pressing against the girl's head. "Just like your Lena doesn't know you're planning to use her as bait to draw me out." "Oh yes, Victor. I know about your little waitress. I know you have her locked away in your safe house. And I know that, despite your cold reputation, you have a weakness for innocent women who remind you of Irina." The name hung in the air like a curse. "Let the girl go," Victor said. And for the first time, I heard something other than control in his voice. "She's not part of this. Neither was Irina." Alexei's face twisted with grief and rage. "She was pregnant, carrying your bastard child. And my brother, my stupid, impulsive brother, killed her because you stole from him, humiliated him, treated him like he was nothing." The gun pressed harder against Katerina's head, and she whimpered. "An eye for an eye, Victor. You took my brother. I take your woman. Fair trade." "I'm not his woman," I heard myself say. The words echoed through the warehouse, and every head turned toward the catwalk where I stood, gun held in trembling hands, boots planted despite my shaking legs. Victor's face went through several emotions in rapid succession: shock, rage, fear, and something that looked almost like pride. "Lena, no, yes." I descended the metal stairs, each step ringing loud in the sudden silence. "I'm not his woman. I'm just a waitress who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. I saved his life, yes, but that doesn't make me important to him. It doesn't make me leverage." I reached the ground floor, positioning myself where I could see both Victor and Alexei. "So if you want to kill someone, kill me. Let the girl go." "Lena." Victor's voice was strained, barely controlled. "Shut up." I kept my eyes on Alexei, even as I felt Victor's gaze burning into me. "Let her go, and I'll give you what you really want. The surveillance footage from the diner. The police already have copies by now. I sent them before I came here. They know Victor survived. They know someone tried to assassinate him. And they have very clear footage of me pulling him to safety. It was a complete bluff. I had no access to the footage, no way to contact the police, no leverage at all except the gun in my hand, and the desperate hope that Alexei wanted Victor's empire damaged more than he wanted Victor dead." Alexei studied me with calculating eyes. "You're lying. Maybe. Or maybe I'm smarter than you think. Maybe I spent last night in Victor's safe house going through his computers, his files, his secrets. I raised the gun, not pointing it at anyone, just making it visible. Maybe I have enough information to bring down both your organizations. So here's my offer. You let the girl go, you walk away from this meeting alive, and I don't release everything to the FBI. The silence stretched so tight, I could hear my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. Then Alexei laughed. You have balls, girl. I'll give you that. He lowered his gun from Katerina's head, nodding to his men. They released her, and she stumbled forward, sobbing. Nikolai moved instantly, catching the girl, pulling her behind Victor's position. But here's the problem with your bluff, Alexei continued, raising his weapon toward me. I don't believe you had time to access anything useful. I don't believe the police have footage, and I don't believe Victor would keep you alive if you had his secrets. His finger moved to the trigger. What I do believe is that you're a stupid girl playing a game she doesn't understand. The gunshot exploded through the warehouse. But it wasn't Alexei who fired. Victor moved faster than I'd ever seen a human move, his weapon appearing in his hand. The shot so precise that Alexei's gun went flying from his grip before he could pull the trigger. Another shot, and one of Alexei's men dropped. Another, systematic, controlled, each bullet finding its target with surgical precision. Nikolai was moving too, his weapon tracking targets, laying down cover fire as chaos erupted. I dropped to the ground, crawling toward cover behind a concrete pillar, my ears ringing from the gunfire. Through the confusion, I saw Victor advancing on Alexei, who was clutching his bleeding hand, his face contorted with rage and pain. You don't touch her, Victor said, and his voice was death itself. You don't look at her. You don't breathe in her direction. Am I clear? She came here herself, Alexei spat. She's a liability, Victor. You know it. She'll destroy you. Then I'll let her. Victor pressed his gun against Alexei's forehead. But you won't live to see it. Victor, don't! The words tore from my throat. He froze, eyes finding mine across the blood-splattered warehouse floor. Please, I whispered, standing on shaking legs. Don't kill him. Not like this. Not because of me. He tried to kill you. He failed. You won. Your men are alive. The girl is safe, and he's disarmed. You can end this without more death. I walked toward them, stepping over fallen bodies, ignoring Nikolai's shouted warning. You said I reminded you of what Irina could have been. So show me. Show me who Viktor Volkov could be if he chose mercy over revenge. The moment hung suspended, and I saw the war in his eyes, the killer he'd always been versus something else. Something softer that I'd somehow awakened. Then he lowered the gun. You have 24 hours to leave the city. Victor said to Alexei, take your men, take your business and go. If I see you or any of your people after tomorrow's sunset, the truce is over. Understood? Alexei, clutching his ruined hand, nodded once before being helped away by his surviving men. As their vehicles roared away, Victor turned to me, and the look in his eyes made my knees weak. You could have died, he said quietly. So could you. That's different. Why? Because you're used to it? Because your life is worth less than mine? I closed the distance between us, reaching up to cup his face. I saved you once in that diner. Did you really think I'd stop? His arms came around me, crushing me against him with desperate strength. You're insane. Reckless. Completely unpredictable. I learned from the best. He pulled back just enough to look at me, and then he kissed me. Harder, deeper, more real than before. This wasn't goodbye. This was a beginning. When we finally broke apart, Nikolai was standing nearby, looking exhausted. Boss, we need to move. Police will be here soon. Victor nodded, but kept his arm around me. Take Katerina somewhere safe. Make sure she gets home. He looked down at me. You and I have that conversation now. Here? No. A hint of a smile touched his lips, somewhere worthy of the woman who just saved my life twice in 24 hours. The place Victor took me wasn't another safe house. It was a penthouse overlooking the city, all floor-to-ceiling windows and modern elegance that spoke of wealth accumulated over years, not months. As the elevator doors opened directly into the apartment, I realized this was his real home. The place he actually lived when he wasn't running from enemies or planning wars. "Welcome," he said softly, his hand on the small of my back as he guided me inside, "to the only place in this city where I can truly be myself." The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of amber and crimson. I walked to the windows, looking down at the streets far below where normal people lived normal lives, going to jobs they hated, paying bills they couldn't afford, worrying about things that now seemed impossibly small. I'd been one of those people yesterday. Now I was standing in a multi-million-dollar penthouse with a man who'd killed for me, who'd spared an enemy because I'd asked, who looked at me like I was simultaneously his salvation and destruction. "Tell me everything," I said, not turning from the window. "No more secrets, no more half-truths. If I'm really in this, I need to know who you are." I heard him move behind me, felt his presence like heat against my back. "What do you want to know?" "Start with Irina." His reflection appeared in the glass beside mine, and I watched his expression tighten. She was the daughter of a rival boss. We met at a neutral meeting when I was 25. She was fire. Dangerous, intelligent, completely unafraid of me or my reputation. His hand came up, not touching me but close, hovering near my shoulder. We fell in love despite our families. Despite the war it would cause, we had 6 months together before she told me she was pregnant. "What happened?" I whispered. "I tried to leave, to build something legitimate, something clean for our child. But you don't just walk away from this life, Lena. My enemies saw weakness, opportunity. Alexei's brother, Dmitri, was the worst of them. He kidnapped Irina, demanded I surrender my territory. Victor's voice went hollow. I refused. I thought I could save her, that I had time. But Dmitri was more impulsive than his brother. When I stormed his compound, I found her already dead. Single gunshot to the head. She'd been dead for hours while I'd been planning my rescue. I turned, finally facing him, and saw the old pain carved into every line of his face. "That's why you killed him." I killed him slowly, made him suffer. No apology in his voice, no regret. And I swore I'd never care about anyone again, that I'd be the monster they all feared because monsters don't feel loss. "But you do feel," I said quietly. "You feel everything. You just hide it better than most." His hand finally made contact, cupping my cheek. Until some stubborn waitress grabbed my arm and pulled me from death without a second thought. Do you know what I saw in that moment, Lena? When you looked at me in that diner, when you reacted to danger to save a stranger? What? I saw someone who still believed people were worth saving, even someone like me. His thumb traced my lower lip, and I felt the touch everywhere. And I knew instantly, that I couldn't let this world destroy that. Couldn't let my enemies take another innocent life because of proximity to me. "So you kidnapped me for my own good." A ghost of a smile. "I prefer to think of it as aggressive protection. And the fact that I look like her, that I remind you of what you lost, is irrelevant." He stepped closer, and I could feel his heartbeat against my chest. "Yes, there's a resemblance. Yes, something in me recognized that and responded. But Lena?" His hands framed my face, forcing me to see the truth in his eyes. "You are not her. You're softer where she was hard, instinctive where she was calculating. You see good in a man covered in blood and sin, and somehow, impossibly, you make me want to be worthy of that vision." "You spared Alexei," I breathed. "You chose mercy. I chose you. Your way. Your belief that there's something in me worth saving." His forehead pressed against mine. "I don't know if you're right. I don't know if a man like me can ever be anything but the monster I've become. But for you, Lena, I'm willing to try." The kiss was inevitable, necessary. His lips claimed mine with a hunger that spoke of years of emptiness finally finding fullness, and I responded with equal desperation. My hands tangled in his hair, pulling him closer, needing to feel something real after a day of violence and fear. He lifted me effortlessly, carrying me through the penthouse to a bedroom that overlooked the glittering city. The bed was massive, covered in dark silk that whispered luxury against my skin as he laid me down. "Last chance," he murmured against my throat, his hands already working the buttons of my borrowed shirt. "You can still walk away. I'll give you money, a new identity, protection. You can disappear and live the life you would have had. Without you?" I pulled his shirt free, running my hands over the scarred landscape of his chest and abdomen. "No, I choose this. I choose you. Then you're mine." Not a question. A statement of absolute fact. And I don't share, Lena. I don't do casual. If we cross this line, you're mine completely. In every way that matters. Good. I pulled him down to me. Because I'm tired of belonging to no one. Of being invisible. Of being just another struggling waitress in a city that doesn't care if I live or die. I care. His hands traced paths of fire down my body. I'll always care. And anyone who tries to hurt you will learn exactly how ruthless Viktor Volkov can be when protecting what's his. The possessiveness should have frightened me. Instead, it sent heat pooling low in my belly. For the first time in my life, someone was claiming me, choosing me, seeing me as something precious worth protecting. What followed was inevitable, necessary. His touch was commanding yet surprisingly gentle, knowing exactly how to make me gasp. How to make me forget every rational reason this was insane. And when we finally came together, it felt less like sex, and more like sealing a pact written in fire and blood. Afterward, as we lay tangled in silk sheets with the city lights painting patterns on our skin, Victor's fingers traced lazy circles on my hip. "I need to tell you something," he said quietly. "About your father." I tensed. "My father died when I was 10, car accident." "No." His hand stilled. "He died 3 years ago, in prison. And before that he worked for me." The world tilted. "What?" Victor sat up, pulling me with him so we faced each other. His name was Marcus Chen. He was my accountant for 5 years, handling financial operations. Good man, loyal, careful. But he got greedy. Started skimming money, hiding it in offshore accounts. His eyes searched mine. I didn't know he had a daughter. He never mentioned family. Never brought his personal life to work. When I discovered the theft, I gave him a choice. Return the money and leave the city, or face consequences. My hands were shaking. He went to prison, because he refused both options. Said he'd rather go to legitimate authorities, confess to financial crimes, than live looking over his shoulder for my retribution. So he did. Victor's jaw tightened. I had no idea he left behind a 10-year-old girl who'd been told he died in an accident. No idea you'd been living in this city for years, struggling to survive while his stolen money sat in accounts I couldn't access without alerting authorities. How did you... My voice broke. How did you know? I didn't. Not until I ran your background check after bringing you to the safe house. Lena Chen, daughter of Marcus Chen, working at Miller's Diner for 6 years. His hand cupped my face. And suddenly, everything made sense. Why you felt familiar, why something in me recognized you even though we'd never met. Tears streamed down my face. You knew. This whole time you knew my father stole from you, and you still protected you, claimed you, chose you. He wiped my tears with his thumbs. Because you are not your father's sins, Lena. You're an innocent woman who's been paying for his mistakes her entire life. Living in poverty, working yourself to exhaustion, invisible to a world that should have protected you. The money, I whispered. The money he stole is yours. Victor stood, walking to his closet and returning with a folder. $3.2 million held in trust accounts under various corporate shells. I had my lawyers transfer it to your name this morning. It's clean, legitimate, untraceable. I stared at the documents through blurring vision. I don't want it. That money, it's blood money. It's your father's legacy, the only good thing he managed to do before pride destroyed him. Victor knelt before me, taking my hands. Use it to go to school, start a business, build the life you deserve, or don't touch it. Let it sit and grow while you figure out what you want. But it's yours, Lena. Not as payment, not as obligation, as justice. What do you get out of this? I demanded through my tears. You give me money, protection, everything. What do you want from me? Everything. His answer was immediate, absolute. I want you to stay, to build a life here, with me. I want to wake up to your face every morning and know that something good exists in my dark world. He stopped, vulnerability flickering across his features. I want what I had with Irina, but better. Real. Built on truth instead of secrets. I don't know how to be a mobster's girlfriend. A real laugh, warm and genuine. Good. I don't want a mobster's girlfriend. I want Lena Chen, former waitress, stubborn savior, woman brave enough to walk into a gunfight to protect a monster. You're not a monster. I've done monstrous things, so have I now. I gestured to the folder. I knocked out your guard. I stole your car. I almost got us both killed. You saved me. Again. And you made me spare an enemy, which might be the most dangerous thing anyone's ever convinced me to do. He pulled me into his arms. We're both going to have to live with the consequences of this week. The people who died in that diner. The men who fell in that warehouse. The lives irrevocably changed. Can we? I whispered against his chest. Can we really build something good from all this blood and violence? I don't know. His honesty hurt and healed simultaneously. But I'm willing to try. For you, Lena. Only for you. We stayed like that as night deepened over the city. Two damaged people clinging to each other like lifelines. Eventually, Victor's phone buzzed. Nikolai reporting that Alexei and his men had left the city, that Katerina was safely home, that the police investigation into the diner bombing was focusing on gas leak theories. Life, somehow, was continuing. What happens now? I asked as dawn began painting the sky pink. Now? Victor turned from the window where he'd been watching the sunrise. Now you decide. You can take the money and disappear. I'll arrange everything. Ensure you're safe. Or, he held out his hand, you can stay. Build a life here. With me. Not as my possession, not as my replacement for Irina, but as my partner, my equal, my choice. I looked at his outstretched hand. Scarred, strong, capable of such violence and such gentleness. I thought about my old life, the diner job I'd lost, the apartment I couldn't return to, the exhausting grind of surviving day to day with no hope of anything better, and I thought about what he was offering. Danger, yes, but also protection, uncertainty, but also possibility. A man who'd killed for me, spared for me, who looked at me like I was the answer to prayers he'd never thought to speak. It was insane. Completely, utterly insane. I took his hand. I stay, I said firmly. But on one condition. Name it. No more secrets. No more protection through ignorance. If I'm in this life, I'm fully in it. I want to know everything. Your business, your enemies, your plans. I want to be your partner in truth. Not just some civilian you're shielding. Something like respect and fear flickered across his face. That's dangerous knowledge, Lena. I walked into a warehouse full of armed men yesterday. I think I can handle dangerous. I squeezed his hand. Besides, you need someone around who isn't afraid to tell you when you're being a controlling, overprotective criminal. Is that what you'll be? My conscience? Among other things. I pulled him closer, rising on my toes to kiss him softly. I'll be your reminder that monsters can choose to be men, that power doesn't have to mean cruelty. That even in your dark world, there's room for something good. You're either very brave or very foolish. Probably both. I smiled against his lips. But I'm yours. Completely. So you'd better be worth it, Viktor Volkov. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be. And somehow, impossibly, I believed him. 6 months later, I stood in that same penthouse, wearing a dress that cost more than my yearly salary used to be, looking out at the city that had tried to destroy me, and failed. Victor appeared behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist, and I leaned into his solid warmth. The diner had been rebuilt. Danny had survived with minor injuries, and now managed a restaurant I'd bought him with my inheritance money. Mr. Peterson visited every week, still leaving $5 tips even though the coffee was free. The Collins twins, who'd miraculously survived by being in the bathroom during the explosion, sent me thank you cards every month. Alexei had kept his word, leaving the city and taking his organization with him. Victor had started legitimizing parts of his business, investing in legal enterprises, slowly building something that wouldn't require violence to maintain. It wasn't clean, it wasn't simple, but it was real. Having regrets? Victor murmured against my neck. Every day. I turned in his arms. But I've never regretted you. Good. He kissed me softly. Because you're stuck with me now, Mrs. Volkov. I looked down at the ring on my finger. Simple, elegant, nothing like the ostentatious jewelry his world usually favored. We'd gotten married quietly, with only Nikolai and a justice of the peace present. No family, no spectacle. Just us, choosing each other again in the eyes of the law. Mrs. Volkov, I repeated, testing how it felt. Still sounds strange. You'll get used to it. His hand moved to my stomach, where our future was beginning to grow. Especially when there's a little Volkov running around. 3 months pregnant. Another life beginning from the ashes of the old one. Another chance to build something good. Do you think Irina would have approved? I asked quietly. Of us. Victor considered this, his hand splaying protectively over my still flat stomach. I think she would have told me I was an idiot for falling in love with someone even more stubborn than she was. And then she would have given you advice on handling me. He smiled, soft and sad. She would have liked you, Lena, and she would have wanted me to be happy. Are you? I searched his eyes. Happy? More than I ever thought possible. He pulled me closer. You saved my life that night in the diner. But the real salvation came after. When you saved me from becoming the monster I was turning into. When you showed me there was still something human left worth fighting for. We saved each other, I corrected. You gave me a life worth living, purpose beyond just surviving. Then we're even. Never. I kissed him deeply, pouring everything I felt into that single moment. I'll always owe you one life saved, which means you're stuck with me forever. Forever. He echoed the word like a vow. I can live with that. Outside, the city continued its eternal rhythm. People living, dying, struggling, thriving. Somewhere down there, a waitress was serving coffee to strangers. Somewhere, a young woman was making a choice that would change everything. Somewhere, life was happening in all its messy, complicated, beautiful chaos. But up here, in this moment, I had everything I needed. A man who loved me fiercely, a future growing inside me, and the hard-won knowledge that sometimes the worst moments of your life could lead to the best ones. I'd pulled a stranger into a kitchen and saved us both from an explosion. What I hadn't known then was that the real explosion, the one that would shatter and rebuild my entire existence, was still to come, and I wouldn't have changed a single second of it. Come, Victor said, pulling me toward the bedroom. We have a few hours before the meeting with the investors. Let me show you exactly how happy you make me. I laughed, letting him lead me, this dangerous man who was mine, this life that was ours, this impossible love that had bloomed in blood and fire. The bomb that went off outside that diner had destroyed my old life completely. But from those ashes, we'd built something extraordinary. And it was only just beginning.